Police are now investigating a homicide. A man assaulted on Halloween night has died from his injuries. OPD saying October 31st they were called to 38th and Hamilton. There was a man on the ground and they found Daniel Price, who was 62. He's unresponsive and suffering from a head wound. Price died Saturday from his injuries. No arrests have been made in the case.
Switching